All right, let's rank all 32 offenses. Why not? I kind of have done this on my podcast already if you've been listening to that, but I'm going to put it here so that it's all in one list and not just, you hearing where your team ranked like I do in the podcast format. So check out the podcast if you want a more in-depth explanation for any of these, but basically just to set up what we're going to do, we're going to go from worst to best, talking about my predictions, which predictions are always tough, but they're also always fun. And also I'm using my algorithm. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm predicting where I think each position group will rank in the 2022 season, and then looking at how many wins that typically equates to, and that's the total win total that I'm giving to your offense. So you'll understand it more once I get into it, so let's just get into it. So we're going to go 8 at a time, starting off with the bottom 8. So you see at the bottom, we actually have a tie for the worst offenses, in my opinion. Also, the other thing you see on the screen, I have just the entire chart for how many wins it equates to for wherever your tier is. So just for example, what you see on that chart is if you have a tier 1 offensive line, it's worth 1.85 wins. That's just historically how many wins that typically equates to using math. So if you're interested in what that actually means, what you see on the screen, figured I'd throw that on there as well. Anyways, so Bears and Jaguars both have the exact same setup, which is why they're tied for 31st. They both have a tier 4 quarterback, so that helps. And they both have, there's no difference between a tier 2 and tier 3 running back, so they both have running back rooms in that area. And other than that, no real added win totals. I have them as tier 5 offensive lines, and I have them as tier 5 receiving cores. So, if the quarterbacks can step it up, that will certainly make things easier, but given their surrounding talent that I believe they will have, not so great. The Panthers come in at 30, and to be honest, maybe they should be better than tier 5. I made that before the Baker Mayfield trade. You could talk me into tier 4. Justin Fields is currently the worst tier 4 quarterback. So would you rather have Mayfield next year or Fields? Take your pick. I'll just leave it at tier 5 for now, though I think I'll stay that way. But you could definitely make the argument that he should be better. He has played better in the past, so we'll see about that. Don't love their receiving core, though. They have some names there. I like DJ Moore, but again, it's just like there's so many good receivers out there. That's, I think, what people kind of miss is, yes, you have receivers who have names, but they certainly got to pick it up from what they played last year. I think their offensive line's underrated. I have it as a tier 3 offensive line, so I definitely think that that's something that helps. But still, I'm not in love with this team, and also the running back room. If Christian McCaffrey's healthy, it's immediately a tier 1, but I just don't know if he'll be healthy. The Steelers, a lot of tier 5s across the board. Again, predictions are hard. Will Kenny Pickett really be a tier 5? Who knows? The receiving core is solid, though, so gets him a little bit better, but still not a lot of talent there. Some people would have Najee Harris as, a tier 3 or tier 2 running back room, but again, depth does come into play there as well. The Texans, who I know the Mills Mafia will be upset that I did not have them as a top 4 tier quarterback. It is tier 5 for me, but you at least have some value with the offensive line and receiving core, in my opinion. The Giants are also here, who I have Daniel Jones at tier 4. Daniel Jones had some good games last year. You just want to see more consistency there. Still have some concerns about their interior offensive line, and Evan Neal is a rookie. Will he come in and play right away? Well, who knows? Maybe he'll have an Andrew Thomas type trajectory, struggle in his rookie year, and then play well. So there's the question there. I also feel like, the receiving core was definitely disappointing last year, but certainly has potential to be better than a tier 4. For the Falcons, you have, again, kind of an inconsistent offensive line, but they have some really good players on that offensive line. Receiving core, I do think a lot of it's going to come down to how well Drake London plays. This could be better than tier 3 if Drake London plays well. It could be worse than tier 3 if he does not come in and play too well. And also, Desmond Ridder, at quarterback, or Marcus Mariota. Either way, tier 5, that's going to make it tough. See a lot of tier 5 quarterbacks making this bottom chunk because the quarterback position obviously is the most important position. That's the most weight goes there. Seahawks, another tier 5 quarterback team, then that's the main reason they're this far down, because there is some talent on this offense. They have a good receiving core. Could use maybe some depth there, but they have, at least, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. That's going to help. Offensive line's not great. It's not horrible. Same thing with the running back room is actually good. I didn't quite have it as top 5, but there's definitely some value there. So there's some talent on this offense. It's just the quarterback situation. They got to figure it out. Moving on to the next tier, Titans fans and I are just not getting along this offseason. I'm kind of betting against them, which we'll see if it works out. I typically am a Titans defender, so this is a new situation for me. But the main thing is with their offense, what I don't like is their receiving core. I'm not a huge Treylon Burks guy. I wasn't out of college. Maybe I'm wrong. A lot of people liked him. So wide receivers, one of the most difficult positions to evaluate. So if I'm wrong about that, then I'll say, hey, I was wrong, and they'll look a lot better because you still have Derrick Henry there, who even coming off of an injury, he's only coming off of one injury, so I'll kind of maybe be a little bit more willing to believe he could still be great, but there is a risk factor there. I like Tannehill though, and I like their offensive line enough. So, we're past the trash offenses certainly, and onto the kind of maybe offenses that have some holes. The Lions with Jared Goff as tier 4, you're only going to do so much. Tier 1 offensive line though, first tier 1 offensive line to make this list at 23. I think the receiving core could still use some work. Hopefully Jameson Williams comes back and is perfectly healthy, and that could potentially get it a little bit better. Don't love their running back room. Some people do, but as a whole, that's where they end up. The Jets here at 22. Again, tier 4 quarterback for Zach Wilson. There's a bit of I almost feel like there's zero chance that Zach Wilson ends up as a tier 4 quarterback. He'll probably either be tier 5 or like tier 2. I feel like he's either going to take a big step forward or still struggle. But, that's kind of why he ends up in tier 4, because there is just that question mark there. But a good offensive line, certainly. One of the real underrated offensive lines. I thought it was underrated last year. Got too much criticism due to Wilson holding onto the ball for forever, and the receiving core wasn't getting open. They made some improvements to the receiving core. I'm interested in seeing how that will work. Keep in mind, I do count tight ends as the receiving core, so it says wide receiver. That's just because it's an easier acronym than receiving core. People understand what WR means more than RC would mean, so I just go with that. But, that helps them as well. You also have the Ravens there at 21, but I always put an asterisk on the Ravens because given the way Lamar Jackson plays, they just kind of break this algorithm a little bit because they only get credit for the 0.24 running back room. But obviously with Lamar Jackson there, it's going to perform better than just, it's going to be the best running game in football if Lamar Jackson is healthy. So that's kind of where the flaw comes in. I have Lamar as a tier 2 quarterback, so that helps, but still don't love the receivers. And listen, receivers matter a lot in football. I still feel like while they're kind of an offense that doesn't need receivers as much as other teams do, I still would like them to have receivers, especially going up against great teams. That's my concern about them. The Saints don't have a lot of flaws here. Their biggest issue is not having maybe a group that's great. I have them as a tier 3 quarterback room with Jameis Winston. Who knows? Maybe he'll finally, in his 8th season now, break out and be awesome. I kind of think this is who Jameis Winston is a quarterback who can do some nice things, but also has some holes in his game. I do have a couple of issues with that offensive line, and even more so now that Trevor Penning is banged up. Receiving core could end up being the best receiving core in football or the worst receiving core in football, given depending on how Michael Thomas and Chris Olave and Jarvis Landry all work out and are able to play there. So fascinated in seeing that stuff. The Bills are a team that I think many people would have higher. I did have Josh Allen as a tier 2 quarterback. I had him as my 6th ranked quarterback. A lot of people would have him at number 1. Okay, fine. My opinion on it is I think Josh Allen was clearly the best quarterback in the playoffs. I don't think he was the best quarterback in the regular season. I think that there were he had some tougher games, I think. And there's a bunch of really good quarterbacks. So you could argue it's tier 1. It's closer to tier 1 than it is tier 2 in terms of the value, I would say. So that's fine. If you want to give them an extra 1.2 wins, I wouldn't really fight you on it because I get it. He is fantastic. Offensive line's good. Don't love this receiving core. I just don't. So that's a concern for me. Obviously don't love the running game. So, while I love Josh Allen, it feels like he's going to, I guess maybe I don't love Josh Allen as much as other people do, but I still do love Josh Allen. I just feel like he's going to have to carry the offense, which he was asked to do too much last season, I think. The 49ers, who have a great receiving core, but that's what they're really relying on, is that great receiving core. And again, George Kittle factors into that. I have Trey Lance as a tier 4 quarterback. Could he be better? Could he be worse? Remains to be seen. I think the offensive line, especially the interior, had some real flaws, which concerns me. The Colts here at 17, Matt Ryan, tier 3. Good offensive line, though. And again, would like to see them improve that receiving core. That's kind of why they can't quite be in the top half. But with Jonathan Taylor, that makes up for it. So they're at least, at 17, kind of right in that middle area. Next group, we have a tie at 15. And again, one of those, all four categories are the same. Interestingly enough, we're tier 5 offensive line, so that's not ideal. But you have tier 2 quarterbacks with Kirk Cousins, who was very underrated last year, and I think Kyler Murray, who is underrated. I mean, there was a point last year where it was just a given Kyler Murray was going to win MVP. It was after week 7, so it was way too early to say that, but it felt like he was the clear front runner at that point, and then the injury happened, and he didn't play fantastic after the injury, but still. I think that he's kind of gotten overblown. He might be another guy who is getting too much criticism due to a bad postseason performance, which is what people tend to remember, which, listen, I do get it. That is the most important game. If you're going to overreact to one game, that's probably the game to overreact to. Also, good receiving cores. I think for both of them, depth, you could use some more depth there, which is why I can't quite have them at tier 1. Obviously, the Hopkins injury suspension is a little bit, damaging as well. The Rams here at 14. Listen, I know a lot of people would have Matt Stafford as tier 2, probably some maybe even as tier 1. I did have him as tier 3, but I had him just barely tier 3. I had him very close to tier 2. So just before anyone gets angry at me, yes, I think I had Kirk Cousins one spot ahead of Stafford because Kirk Cousins was objectively better in the regular season last year. That's by every advanced metric I've seen and my eye test, that's what I saw. That being said, the Rams have, in my opinion, an equally good receiving core, which even has potential to be better than the other two, and they have a much better offensive line than those past two, so that's why they're here at 14. The Cowboys, losing Amari Cooper hurts. Tier 3 receiving core still, though you have a tier 1 offensive line, and you have a tier 3 quarterback with Dak Prescott, another guy who some might say he's a tier 2 guy, but listen, standards change, and there's a lot of good quarterbacks right now. So, to me, Lamar Jackson, I've always considered to be a tier 1 quarterback. This year, I have him as tier 2, but I don't really feel like he's gotten worse. I just feel like other guys have passed him, and that's kind of how I feel about Prescott, is my opinion of what a tier 2 quarterback is. There's more better quarterbacks now, so Prescott, really through no fault of his own, dropped in my quarterback rankings. The Packers are interesting at 12. I mean, they're all Aaron Rodgers. Again, you get the 3.99 wins with a tier 1 quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers is clearly a tier 1 quarterback. There's no arguing that. Great running back room as well. I believe I have that as number 1 as well. So I have them as the best quarterback in football and the best running back room in football, but don't love their offensive line. They're the Packers. They always figure it out, so I guess I should be more lenient, but don't love the talent there. And obviously no one loves their receiving core. But Rodgers in the running back room and Matt LaFleur, they'll be awesome and probably be way better than 12th. The Broncos here are another team where I have Wilson at tier 2. And again, that's kind of the craziness is when you want to say, wait, Dak Prescott, he should be tier 2. I have Russell Wilson at tier 2. That's kind of how crazy talented these quarterbacks are in the NFL right now. Do think some of the talent is a bit overrated. There's stuff to like under receiving core. There's stuff to like under offensive line. There's stuff to like in their running back room, but none of it is fantastic. I kind of feel like that's my issue with the Broncos in general. I feel like they have Russell Wilson and then they're kind of good everywhere. I don't know where they're great outside of quarterback, but still, that can do a lot of damage, so they're here at 11. At number 10, so you have the Miami Dolphins, who I have as a tier 1 running back room. They added, in my opinion, the best receiver in football, Tyreek Hill, on the first preseason play that he had with Tyreek Hill, hit him with a deep shot. So, all those questions. Seems like Tyreek Hill will help the offense. I have Tua as a tier 3 quarterback. To me, that feels fair. Don't love their offensive line, but it should be better than last year. So Dolphins should be in, a good spot. And kind of, interestingly, very similar. The Raiders are, almost identical here. They just have a slightly better running back room, in my opinion. I had them as a tier 1 receiving core because, again, Hunter Renfrow, Devontae Adams, and Darren Waller, that's a great 1-2-3 combo that's just going to really do some damage. Again, Derek Carr, who definitely I think is a step up from Tua, but they just, the tier 3 gap. There's the most quarterbacks there. There's 10 quarterbacks there. Carr is another one of those guys who I've always considered similar to Stafford. It's like I feel like it should be a tier 2, but there's only 6 spots for tier 2, and I had a couple guys slightly ahead of him. I know everyone's going to say that their quarterback should be ahead of Kirk Cousins, but Cousins was good last year. Don't bash Cousins. I like Derek Carr a lot, though, and he's someone who performs well in a big game. So that's another thing to like about him. I think their offense should be very good, and who knows? This is the first year we'll really see him with a great receiving core, so maybe that could make him just look better because of that. All right. Top 8 here. You have the Patriots who, Patriots always seem to figure it out. Offensive line, they got rid of, Shaq Mason. Why did they draft Cole Strange? I'm sure Cole Strange is going to win All-Pro, but just because that's how the Patriots work. But it's still, even given my evaluations of those players, it's still very good offensive line. Like Mac Jones, maybe he'll even, turn into better than tier 3, but for now I have him at tier 3. But, again, same with the receiving core. On paper, they tend to not be this fantastic receiving core, but they were used so well last year. And with a tier 1 running back room, a lot of good stuff to like about the Patriots. The Eagles here as well. The A.J. Brown addition should help them a ton. Love their offensive line. Jalen Hurts, I think, is solid, so because of that, and Jalen Hurts will help them out in the running game as well, so they finish here at 7th. We have a tie for 5th with the Balls and the Chargers, so the Balls are the Washington football team. Both have tier 2 offensive lines. I think the Chargers with Justin Herbert, who is a tier 2 quarterback, because again, like if you're mad at me about Josh Allen, I also have Justin Herbert as a tier 2 quarterback. Like these are awesome quarterbacks that I just can't quite put into tier 1 because there can only be 5 guys. Chargers I think could use some depth in the receiving game. Personally, I think that I think the Balls definitely have a bit of an upgrade there, as they will have Carson Wentz as their quarterback, who, listen, Wentz gets a lot of criticism. He's clearly a tier 3 quarterback, though. He's not a trash quarterback, and he will help them win football games. He probably won't help them win a Super Bowl, you would assume. And again, running games, some people would have Austin Eckler as tier 1. I did not quite have that much, but, do like him. And, again, some people would have the Washington football team as at least tier 3. I did not. So that's where they're at. Number 4, the Kansas City Chiefs, who, you see how with the 5 tier 1 quarterbacks, only one of them did not make the top 5. It was the top 4 are all tier 1 quarterbacks, and the other one was the Packers, who finished 12th. So kind of interesting there, just how much that quarterback position matters in an offense. And for Patrick Mahomes, yeah, he's going to help out your offense a lot. They lost Tyreek Hill. That hurts. I think the receiving room is still okay. Again, I count tight ends, so Travis Kelce is very much there. And I think they added some pieces there that I'm fascinated and I think could do well. I like Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I think that he should play solid. I like Sky Moore. I think that he should play solid. So I think they'll be okay, but there's still definitely some question marks there. So I can't have it any better than tier 3. Offensive line I like. Don't know if it'll be as dominant as it was last year, but still have it at tier 4. The Browns, who big asterisk next to the Browns is I am giving them a tier 1 quarterback grade. This is what I have them. If Deshaun Watson is playing, this is where I have their value, which obviously we know Watson will miss the first 11 games. Without Watson, I have them as the 25th offense. Just kind of goes to show how important that difference from a tier 1 to tier 5 quarterback room really is. Love their offensive line, love their running game. Don't love the receiving core, though. That's kind of one of the things that I feel like people are kind of underlooking a little bit. I think there's some issues there. Amari Cooper should do some good work there, but I feel like they could use some extra talent as well. Maybe Stefanski can just keep them open, though. Number 2, I have the Bengals here, which, yes, I have the Bengals, and I have Joe Burrow as a tier 1 quarterback. Oh my God, what are you crazy? The defense was the reason they went to the Super Bowl, all of that stuff. Listen, every advanced metric I saw had Joe Burrow as pass for pass. I guess not every metric, but most metrics I saw had Joe Burrow pass for pass as the best quarterback in football last year. I think that he was fantastic. I don't think he was perfect in the playoffs, and again, maybe you're someone who believes all it comes down to is the playoffs, which I do get, but I still thought he was very good in the playoffs, just not quite what he was in the regular season, and I still blame some of the offensive failures on Zach Taylor running the ball every first down, which I think is just, it's a very old school mindset, and I want to see kind of them open up the offense more, because they also have, and in my opinion, the best receiving core in football. And so if it's a passing league, you have a tier 5 quarterback and the best receiving core in football, you're probably going to be pretty high up on this list. And again, that's what wins you football games is, can you, first, how well do you throw the ball? Second, how well do you defend a pass? And then third, how well do you run the ball? And fourth, how well do you defend a run? That's typically how it works. And so that's why number 1 is the team that I still have as a tier 5 running back room. Maybe it was tier 4, I can't remember. But, you got Tom Brady, who I'm going to still say is probably going to be a tier 5 quarterback. He was my pick to win MVP, not because I thought that he was better than, I said Joe Burrow pass for pass was better, but I think that, more passes, that adds more value. That was my argument for Brady. Either way, he was still one of the best quarterbacks in football last year. And I have Aaron Rodgers as the guy who I say is the best coming into this season. So I'm all over the place, I guess. But receiving core, we all know what they can do. Godwin will hopefully be healthy before too long. They, added Russell Gage. They added Julio Jones. And I still have them as a tier 1 offensive line. I could drop them. I really considered dropping them because of the injuries to the interior. But I think that, losing Aaron Stinney and having Luke Gadecki be the guy, I don't think will hurt them that much. That's at the guard position. The center, losing Ryan Jensen, will definitely hurt. But I just kind of feel like it's Tom Brady. He gets rid of the ball in 1 second. What does it matter? So that's kind of how I viewed it. Obviously, it does matter, but just the idea of Brady will figure out a way to make it work. Typically, he makes the offensive line look better. It's probably lower than tier 1 now, but I don't know exactly where to put it, and I've already made the graphic, so we'll just keep it at that. But, if it falls a little bit, I still think it would be number 1, so I still have the Bucs as the best offense in football. So, yeah, that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.